My pleasure to present our speaker for today, Reverend Glenn Stocking.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you. It has been a turbulent month, and we all call for peace, thinking surely it is the right thing to do. We've all heard the quote, "War is the absence of peace." So it seems logical that reintroducing peace will eliminate war. The reality is, however, that there's a lot of middle ground on that curve, and very few of us ever grace the edges. Peace is easy to obtain. Simply acquiesce to those who are willing to break it. But once the consequences of that decision are examined, peace may lose some of its fantastical attractiveness. When your boundaries are violated, push back. You put them there for a reason. Women's rights, workers' rights, equal rights, American independence, South African apartheid, or the unraveling of colonialism around the world, just to name a few. None of these were earned peacefully. And that is not to say those striving for those changes have employed violence. Usually, just the opposite. Peaceful protest has often been met with totally out of proportion violence initiated by the powers being threatened. Even today, in the nation that is the poster child for freedom, we see legislation being passed by people protecting their power, to protect us from things that never happened. The Florida legislature just ended its term in the state where the Champlain Tower tragedy killed 97 innocent people less than a year ago, without passing any legislation to beef up building safety. They ran out the clock on some really practical and easy ideas. Was it because more inspections might uncover questionable building practices? I wonder how many legislators have financial interest in real estate development. Our legislators did find time, however, to outlaw teaching school children things they were never being taught in the first place. Not many second graders are too hung up on their gender identity, and no one has ever suggested it is appropriate to explore the subject in a general setting at that age. But not to worry, it is now illegal. Cultural influences on upward mobility is a subject law students are exposed to in the course of their training. It is far too involved and advanced for kindergarten through 12th grade curriculums, but again, our children are safe from having the subject even discussed. It is illegal in Florida. Our children will just have to keep learning about privilege the old-fashioned way, by running up against it again and again, while being told it does not exist. There is nothing peaceful about these attacks on our society. These are examples of meanness for the sake of being mean. Power being wasted to split us apart while lives are being lost for lack of a simple building inspection. The status quo remains so until someone overturns the apple cart. Wherever power is being transferred or displaced, fear follows, and common discourse flees. The problem, in a nutshell, is too many people too heavily invested in misguided thinking. People still believe, and with a lot of common consciousness reinforcing it, that limits dictate only a few of us can win. So the rest of us are doomed to lose. People still believe, and with a lot of common consciousness reinforcing it, that nothing ever changes. And they will make that argument while standing in line waiting for release of the newest iPhone. People still believe, and with a lot of common consciousness reinforcing it, that stories passed down generation to generation are scientific fact beyond reproach when basis for that story is questionable at best, rooted in ignorance of information readily available to our time. Ever play the telephone party game? Imagine how decades of time and continental distances affect oral tradition. In the realm of spirituality, change is an established constant. When I read in chapter 9 of Isaiah in the Bible that in verse 10, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them to cedars. I see a mandate to adjust on the fly. Go with the flow. Accept that change is inevitable as conditions evolve. We're being taught here to not give up just because things look different than our expectations. To not let form dictate function. You know, the first automobiles were made chiefly of wood. That copied the form of horse-drawn wagons, and it worked pretty well up to about 50 miles an hour. After that, things started shaking apart, falling off and becoming downright deadly when collisions occurred. Thinking evolved. By that time, ships had morphed from wooden to iron hulls, so it made sense to build cars with more iron or the more pliable steel, until that material too gave way to plastics, aluminum, and other lightweight synthetics to save weight and reduce fuel consumption. Our demand for safer, faster cars demanded an evolution in materials to be made possible. In the foreword to my edition of the Science of Mind textbook, which I read on Kindle, Gene Houston wrote, "To read the Science of Mind textbook is to be charged in the alembic of change, to enter into partnership with God, to relearn the laws of co-creation," highlighting our belief in the evolution of our thoughts, our experiences, and our consciousness as we open our minds to the expanding world of information. Always with the caveat of knowing spirit can only demonstrate as love. Spirit, or more traditionally, God's love, can only demonstrate through change. And change often demands a disruption of peace. We are at peace when we are stagnated. We must disrupt that peace to move from where we are to where we need to be. Knowing how spirit works, however, allows us to disrupt our peace while remaining at peace because we accept the need for change as a condition of living. Shifting our focus now back to those intrusions on our boundaries. First, always accept any boundary intrusion to be an opportunity to examine the boundary. Be at peace within with the intrusion. Now, let's examine the boundary and let's assume it's valid. Assuming it is, we are not willing to accept the consequences of the intrusion, our ability to remain in a state of peace within ourselves demands we be prepared to suspend any expectation of peace in the outer. Whether it is asking for a long overdue raise in pay or waiting hours in line to vote unreasonable people out of office, there is likely to be discomfort, a lack of peace. Nothing in our teaching suggests change comes without effort. The spiritual training of our minds allows us to understand the value of the effort and honor it as part of our process of change. I am old enough, and perhaps you may be too, to be familiar with the phrase attributed to a Navy chaplain under fire during World War II. He was heard to say, "Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition." The admonition being to maintain our principles while doing the practical things needing to be done to address the moment at hand. Many science of mind students know it as the phrase, treat and move your feet. Offer your prayer, but do what you have to do. Spirit will guide us in what needs to be done. Accept the guidance. The reality, early Christians are cited as being willing to die at the hands of gladiators or wild beasts rather than commit violence to defend themselves. The reality is they knew they were going to die regardless, and submitting to their fate denied their tormentors the pleasure of the anticipated spectacle, which, if you think about it, was an act of violence against their captors. Outside the arena, I doubt any Christian would willingly lie down in the presence of a wild lion and offer themselves up as a tasty snack. And don't get me started on the Holy Crusades of the Middle Ages, the infamous Spanish Inquisition, or the Salem witch trials for examples of violations of peace. As spiritual leaders, and I consider everyone drawn to our teaching as a spiritual leader, we better serve our community by helping it understand peace is not the absence of war. It is a state of mind. Our prayer, no, our demand into the universe is to open that peaceful state of mind to those misguided individuals who feel threatened by universal empowerment. Knowing there is but one mind, one infinite, loving energy that is our universe of knowledge and experience. Knowing each of us is seamlessly united within this power, I see a revelation in all humanity of the beautiful truth of our spiritual unity. A sense of joy and harmony is released into the depths of despair where so many have taken refuge. A willingness to let go of misinformed beliefs is embraced and enacted. Walls of lies fall away, allowing light to wash away the shadows. My heart overflows with gratitude, knowing a sense of peace is welcomed back into the hearts of so many who have forgotten its embrace. I send these ideas into creation with no idea of how they are manifest, but knowing those who need to act do so as I speak these words. And so it is. Thank you for your attention.